I am so glad you convinced me that the family car should be the Defender 110. It is so beautiful inside, it's so comfortable, and it just feels indestructible.
Yes, it really is. I've been waiting a long time for the new model to come out. The Defender 110, I'm telling you, it's my favorite car of all times. It's my third one. You know, I have stories of going off road. The guy managed the group. He was like, "What are you doing in this beautiful car?" I'm like, "I'm going off road." He's like, "Are you sure? Because you can use one of ours." And then they look like Mad Max cars. I'm like, "No, no, 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 we're going to do this." And he was shocked.
Wow. Well, it's great because the Defender has been reimagined for 21st century adventure, and its unparalleled off-road ability as well as its robust interior are invaluable whether you're headed towards uncharted territory or just a weekend of exploration. The Defender 110 tackles challenging surroundings with absolute confidence. The SUV conveys strength outside and in, featuring peerless technology like an intuitive driver display and an award-winning infotainment system. That's my favorite part, to keep you connected no matter where the journey takes you. Adventure is unique to everyone, and so is the Defender. Choose from the two-door Defender 90, the four-door Defender 110, or the larger Defender 130 with the ability to seat up to 8 passengers. You'll find uncompromising performance in all three. So pack up and go even further with the Defender 110. Learn more at LandRoverUSA.com/Defender.
These days, we're all investors, trying to be smart with our money despite our worst impulses. But at iShares, we believe that deep down inside of every investor is a better investor. One that's just waiting to be let out. Explore iShares ETFs and insights and let your best investor out. Visit iShares.com for more information.
This isn't your average business podcast, and he's not your average host. This is the James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network.
Beautiful.
So Dave Asprey, and we've got Claudia Altucher also on this podcast because, Dave, I needed the big guns with me for this one because you're so full of information in your book, The Bulletproof Diet, that comes out today, because we're releasing this podcast on the day that your book comes out, that I needed to bring Claudia with me because she's like an expert on everything.
I'm loving it, is what it is, yes. Hello.
That is so cool, and I appreciate it.
Now, Dave, did you drink Bulletproof coffee this morning?
I drink Bulletproof coffee every morning.
Like, I find,
So,
and just to describe, so basically, for people who don't know who you are, Dave Asprey, you wrote The Bulletproof Diet. Let me read the subtitle because it's a great subtitle. Lose up to a pound a day, reclaim energy and focus, upgrade your life. And I have to say, so I read this, you sent me a version of this book a couple of months ago. I read it, Claudia read it. We've been doing the Bulletproof Coffee, we've been doing Bulletproof Sleep, and it's really it actually works. It's really incredible.
Yes, it works.
it's awesome to hear you guys say that. And people sometimes say, how did Bulletproof Coffee get so popular? How did the Bulletproof Diet get so big? And that was it. It works. Like, you can feel Bulletproof Coffee the first day. It's not like a green smoothie where you're like, well, I kind of feel really hungry, but I know it's good for me, so I'll just keep doing it, and I'll probably lose some weight over time. But you're like, something hit me upside the head, and I feel amazing, and it just keeps working. That's been my experience. Like, for 7 years, I've been doing this.
So I want to hear, the Bulletproof Diet almost sounds like a comic book, like you're a bulletproof man. And so with any superhero, I want to hear kind of the main thing that makes Superman interesting is that he's from another planet with a red sun. So I want to hear what your origin story is. Like, where do you come from? Like, who are you?
All right, I'll tell you my superhero version, and
Yes.
then I'll tell you the normal version. All right, superhero version. My grandparents met on the Manhattan Project in Chicago and moved to Los Alamos. This is not a joke. My grandmother won a Lifetime Achievement Award for her work in the field.
So you're a mutant.
I'm serious. That's only half.
You're actually a mutant from nuclear radiation.
only 50%. The other half comes from Roswell, New Mexico.
So you're an
So half
alien
half
mutant.
mutant. That's my superhero story.
Oh my God.
But the other less interesting but more maybe topical one is that I used to weigh 300 pounds, and I had arthritis in my knees when I was 14. I was obese when I was young, and my health was really bad, but I was trying to do the right things, at least the things that I thought were right. After I had a couple knee surgeries, I decided I was going to lose the weight no matter what. And I worked out an hour and a half a day, 6 days a week, and I cut my calories down to about 1,800 a day, and I cut my fat, and I got stronger than all my friends, and I was still fat. And I was fatter than my friends who ate way more than I did and exercised way less than me. And I just felt guilty about it. And I finally realized one day that, you know what, this just doesn't work. Like, it's not that I'm not trying hard enough. It's not that I'm a bad person or that I lack willpower. It's just that the techniques that I've been told about don't work. And sometimes I'd lose 20 pounds or it would come rushing right back. And for the most part, that exercise and low calories was a complete failure. Then my career progressed a little bit, and that kind of yo-yo dieting and excessive exercise started taking its toll, along with environmental toxins and stress and poor sleep and all the other things. And I started getting really bad brain fog. When I was 26, made $6 million in the dot-com boom. And when my brain started turning off, I was kind of terrified, because in Silicon Valley, you make your living with your brain and your creativity, and it's cognitively demanding, and I couldn't bring it mentally. I was getting sick all the time.
Dave, sorry to interrupt, but how did you make the $6 million in the dot-com boom?
This is a company called Exodus Communications.
Okay.
I was the founder of the consulting group there. We grew that to 1,500 people in about 3 years, just that part of the company. This was a company that I would argue played a pivotal role in the creation of cloud computing. Google's first servers, Hotmail servers, Yahoo servers were all in our infrastructure. So the first wave of growth of the internet, about 1 in 4 clicks on the internet went through the infrastructure that the company I worked for built.
I remember Exodus very well, actually. I remember I was the stupidest investor alive, and I remember thinking oh, this stock is 50 cents. It can't possibly go to zero from here. So I bought a huge amount of this stock. So I know it well.
Well, my apologies for that at the end. It was an amazing company, and we really did build 42 giant data centers that were foundational. I mean, eBay servers were in our buildings. It was amazing. All the big companies you've heard of now that are multi-billion dollars, they were using our internet. They were using our stuff. And as a young, mid-20s guy, I ended up sitting in on our board meetings at this company, and I literally saw the inner workings of all this. It was amazing. But when my brain started crumbling, for lack of a better word, I was kind of afraid, because I loved my work, and I just couldn't bring it anymore. How
could you tell your brain was crumbling? Like, what were the signs of that?
Well, I would sit in a meeting, and I just wouldn't remember anything. So I became addicted to my notepad. But there'd be times people would ask me questions, things I knew that I should know that I just didn't remember. And sometimes I would try and conjure up an image of how something worked, and I could see that it didn't work. And then I started using this really high-tech brain measurement tool called FreeCell. It's a free solitaire game you can get on basically PCs. The reason FreeCell is interesting is that it always has a solution, and it's a relatively demanding game. It's a working memory test that isn't quite as good as a psychology test, but going back 10, 15 years, you could predictably finish. If you play 3 games, you know whether they were hard or easy.
Wait, can you spell it? What's the game? Well, I'm sorry, Dave.
Pre-cell?
FREECELL.
Pre-cell.
Okay.
Today, you could use quantified mind, which is about 1,000 times better. But at the time, I just needed to do a task every day and notice that, wow, some days I totally suck at this, and other days I can do it. So it wasn't that I just thought I was weak some days, but something was wrong some days, but not others. And I started going, wait a minute, there's got to be a signal. My background's like computer hacking, complex systems analysis. I'm going to hack myself. And it was that knowledge from Pre-Cell plus a burning desire to keep working and to do the stuff that I love that made me start hacking my body and figuring out what it was that I could do that would make my brain work.
So you didn't think it was stress related because you kind of had the same stress every day. So there must have been some other factor you could control for to see what was going well on the days where your brain was working and what was going poorly on the days when your brain wasn't working.
I did eventually get there. My first thought was, why don't I just take some smart drugs? So back then, smart drugs were not around like they are today. And I ordered a bunch of them from Europe. And smart drugs made my brain work well enough that I could then start paying attention to other environmental things besides stress, like food quality. And I kept a careful journal of what I would eat and when I would notice that my brain worked well, when I would measure that it worked well, and when it wasn't. And I figured out, for instance, that if I had gluten, I was fine the day after the gluten. But 2 days after I had gluten, I would start dropping words like crazy. My brain wouldn't bring things up. As I am today, I don't, when I'm on stage or on a podcast, I don't ever grasp for a word and go, what was I going to say? Or what's the word for that? It's so rare that when it happens, I take note of it and I say, all right, what did I do? And I can usually tell you what I did in the last 3 days that affected even one word dropping in a day.
Really?
Wow.
So like what's an example like gluten that you could take today where 2 or 3 days from now you're going to start dropping words? Like what would be you call it kryptonite in your book, but like what's an example kryptonite you would take today that would cause even like a minimal loss of brain function, 2 or 3 days from now?
When you take, say, a chemical in your food or a naturally occurring anti-nutrient or just something you're allergic to, you can get a short-term response, which usually reflects itself as a 2-hour delay. Sometimes it's even shorter than that, sometimes a little bit longer. They're like, wow, I have a food craving. Like, I want cookies after lunch. I really want coffee. Well, something happened biologically to cause that. It's not that, oh, look, I'm a bad person, I'm having a food craving, or I'll just have to burn up my willpower on that. It's that you did something to cause it. It's within your control. You just don't know the levers. So for me, if someone put a little bit of soy sauce, which is just completely wrong for me, and honestly, it causes problems for a lot of people who don't know it. But that stuff, I'm going to feel not so good in about 2 hours. I'm going to just crave sugar, which doesn't happen anymore. I don't get food cravings unless I eat the wrong stuff. And then the next day or the day after, from the gluten in it, I'm going to have a harder time coming up with these words. And it's not like coming up with words is that big of a challenge because we all talk. But when you want to have a sentence flow and you want to think and talk at the same time, it takes a bit more brain energy and focus than you would expect it to. So if you drop words, even just occasionally, or you catch yourself stuttering because you're trying to think, that's a sign that something in your brain isn't quite perfected.
That's interesting. So take us back then to the origin story. You're in these meetings. You're losing brain function. You've already started doing the basics of biohacking, and you've started doing the smart drugs. Now where are you at?
Well, I decided that I would start attending meetings of an anti-aging research group that had been meeting in Silicon Valley in Palo Alto for, at the time, about a decade. And within a year, I was asked to join the board. And to this day, I'm chairman of the Silicon Valley Health Institute, which for 20 years, once a month, has brought world-class aging experts, researchers, nutritionists. We bring them in to give a lecture to the public about things that you've probably never heard of. So I benefited from a dozen times a year talking with these experts, learning from them, and I've done a ton of my own research. And along the way, early on, I went to a doctor for this brain fog. It was just my GP. And I said, I think vitamin C makes me feel a little bit better. It's the only thing I can find. And he said, stop. Vitamin C will kill you.
Okay, so you thought were you taking vitamin C pills or were you drinking orange juice? Like how are you taking vitamin C?
I was taking pills. I was doing about 3 grams a day. And when my doctor said it would kill me, I'm like, well, what about Linus Pauling, a double Nobel laureate? And who took 90 grams a day and kind of invented vitamin C in terms of biochemistry. And the guy didn't know who he was. So I fired my doctor and I took care of myself. And 4 years of basically buying whatever I wanted online that I thought would affect my consciousness or my weight or my ability to perform. I pulled out all the stops and I ended up spending $300,000 over the course of 15 years trying stuff, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't work, and understanding why. And I just started blogging to share that because it wasn't fair that I had this early win, even though the company went bankrupt and I lost my $6 million. I at least had enough money for a couple of years to really fix myself and then to upgrade myself. And I perform so well now compared to any time in my life that I wake up every morning going, I can't believe this is my life because I didn't grow up with this.
Well, what was the longest it took you to realize something wasn't working during this period?
You mean something that I was experimenting with?
Yeah, something you were experimenting with that you thought might have been working, but it took you a long time to figure out it wasn't working.
You know, it was probably the raw vegan diet. And there's something that I call the vegan trap that happens. I'm willing to eat buckets of gravel if that's what would make me feel best and perform best. Gravel with raw liver, I just don't care. I will put it in my body if it works better. So I found out that raw vegan food actually tastes really good when you prepare it right. I became kind of an expert in that. But after the first 3 months where you feel amazing, stuff happens. I started getting more food allergies. I started getting really strange tooth pain, which is reported. I started getting cold a lot. And there are a bunch of recovering raw vegans on the Bulletproof diet now because you can end up doing some damage to the mitochondria in your body when you get the wrong types and ratios of fatty acids. So you get a upregulation of mitochondrial function for about 3 months, and longer in some people, less than others. And you can sustain for a while, but like things don't work the way they once did. You start getting joint pain and muscle pain and things like that. So it took me a good 3 or 4 months where I felt good, and then it started declining in subtle, annoying ways that I didn't associate with the diet. So then I doubled down on the diet because it made me feel so good. And this is the trap. It worked for a while, so you want to keep doing it. And I added meat back into my diet, but I stayed raw. So for about 3 or 4 months, I was a raw omnivore. I'd eat carpaccio or sushi, and that helped a bit. But it was when I switched to a high healthy fat diet that I really, really regained most of what I was looking for. But I still have food allergies that I didn't have until I was a raw vegan, which I've had a hard time hacking. I'm still working on the end of food allergies.
Okay, so, you wanted to say something, Claudia?
I had a question. In the book, there is a very interesting story. You and I have something in common, and is doctors have given me an ungodly amount of antibiotics for a very long period of time. And I read that you had experienced something similar, and so my stomach never settles. And I heard about some kind of a pigworm experiment you did.
Well, I did mention I was willing to eat anything. One of the fascinating things that came out of research in the field of autism, which is an area where I've done some charitable work for years. I really think we can dramatically reduce autism by doing things before and during pregnancy and in the first years of life. And one of the things that we find in autistic kids is this disturbed gut biome. And a father discovered that if you get parasites, basically worms in your gut, that it can downregulate excessive autoimmune function. So there's now a protocol where you can take pig whipworm eggs. These are parasites. You swallow them in water. They grow in your body for about 6 weeks. They change your immune system, and then they can't reproduce in humans, so then they die. So there's no chance of permanently having worms. So I ordered these. As soon as this was released, I found a supplier in Thailand. I ordered pig whipworm eggs, and I drank a little vial of them. And I didn't get any benefit from doing it. And I spent $900 on eggs.
Okay, because
it was kind of a scary.
My hand was on the checkout button right now when you were saying this, but you didn't get any benefit from it.
No, but there is very good documentation. It's called Hellman therapy, and Hellman is the Latin name for basically worms. So there are autistic kids, people with Crohn's disease and other autoimmune conditions who benefit almost overnight from this kind of stuff. It's really profound, but in my case, it didn't work. And I actually know why. One of the things that made me a hard case for biohacking is that multiple times in my life, I've lived in houses that had water damage from broken pipes or from floods. And environmental toxic mold that just grows in the walls has a completely different effect on different people. And I just finished filming a documentary with like a 5-person film crew going around the country. Dr. Amen and Dr. Hyman and other sort of luminaries in the field of functional medicine are in this, talking about what these molds do. Roughly 1 in 3 of us get seriously whacked by these things. But the rest of us, we just get cancer and heart disease and things like that from environmental molds. So this is a major problem, and I'm looking to shine a light on this over the next year so people understand like what's going on in your bedroom or in your kitchen or in your bathroom may actually be affecting your cognitive performance, affecting your mood stability, and making you fat. Because certainly that was a major contributor for me.
How can you check that around your house?
Well, there's a few videos on the bulletproofexec.com about that. But one of the things that you do is say, well, is there a leak in the roof? Are there stains on the ceiling? And I recommend anyone who's looking to move, whether it's a rental or a purchase, have a home inspection. And most good home inspectors are going to say, look, the sprinkler's been hitting the wall of the house on the outside. There's probably water inside the wall. And behind that drywall, there's going to be black mold. And you can't see it, but it can seriously make you ill.
Wow.
It's even worse if you're looking to have kids, because toxic mold exposure in the womb can have all sorts of devastating effects. It's so well documented in animal literature, but most people just don't know about it. But these are those things, weird environmental things. You can't even see it. And drawing the connections between what happened there and what happened in your gut or in your brain, or even just you have joint pain for no reason, or you have strange nightmares, all of those can be correlated with what you ate, what you breathed, and what you were around.
Wow.
And it's drawing those just careful things. That's a part of biohacking. But because the research is done, it's pulled together from many different places, the Bulletproof diet is about building a program specifically for food that eliminates massive numbers of things that are likely to be kryptonite for you, but may not be. So you can sort of get rid of all the crap, see how you feel, and go, oh, this is how I'm supposed to feel. Well, let me add the stuff back in. All the suspect foods is what we call them on the roadmap. And then you can test it. And from there, there's lots of things you can do to make your brain smarter. And I talk about sleep quality and some other things in the book. But the idea that you're in charge of your biology and that when you change your environment, you change your own biology is fundamental. And food is just the beginning.
Well, it's interesting, Dave, and I wanna get to the book now, the Bulletproof Diet. I got the book. And then I didn't even have all of your ingredients that you saw off your site, but Claudia and I had a specific deadline. I had to finish a book in a weekend, and I had a whole bunch of edits from an editor, and they didn't think I would be able to do it. They were trying to buy themselves time. So what I did was I put together totally your Bulletproof coffee. We had very high grade coffee. Didn't have your coffee. We had high grade coffee. We had coconut oil.
Extra virgin.
We had extra virgin coconut oil. So not exactly the MCT8 coconut oil extract, but we had the extra virgin coconut oil.
And we had grass-fed ghee.
So we mixed it all together. I had like maybe 3 cups a morning. I wrote 170 pages that weekend and probably edited out 140 pages and totally finished the book. They were completely stunned, the people on the other side. Like the whole book was completely rewritten. And it works. Like every morning now, I have, then we started getting your ingredients direct off your site, but every morning now I have some version of Bulletproof coffee.
And the most shocking thing is that then it's around 1 p.m. and we'll realize, wow, we haven't eaten anything. And
yeah, I don't get hungry till about 2. We wake up early. We wake up like 4 or 5 a.m. when we start drinking this. I'm not hungry until about 2 in the afternoon. And then some days I'll only have like 1 meal because of this Bulletproof coffee.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of liberating to just not be thinking about food all day long?
You know, the weird thing is, I feel like starting around 10, I feel like I should be thinking about it, but I'm like full. I'm feeling so full. I'm almost feeling like I'm bloated, but I'm completely not hungry, and I have a ton of energy. So I've stopped going out. Like normally I would go out to like a cafe in the morning, but I just don't need to do it. I'm cranking. So that's just like chapter 1 of your book. But maybe what is up with so I get it with the ghee in the coffee actually, because that gives you some sort of obviously if you're having fats and proteins you're not going to be as hungry. But what's up with the coconut oil?
Well, coconut oil is about 6%, something that is called MCT8. It's the very, very shortest chain saturated fat that's in coconut oil. It's the most precious part of it that very quickly converts to ketones in the body. So
it converts to what? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that.
It converts to ketones. These are the fat-burning bodies that you have. You can be in ketosis if you're like on the Atkins diet or if you're fasting for multiple days. The big problem, though, is no one wants to fast for a few days, and it's very tough to go into ketosis because you have to eat extreme low amounts of carbohydrate. If you're using brain octane oil, which is just a concentrate from coconut oil, then your body has a relatively abundant supply of energy from fat, and your brain prefers energy from fat, even to energy from sugar. So as you're listening to this right now, it's almost certain that your brain is running on just glucose, unless you're on a special diet. And what brain octane lets you do in Bulletproof Coffee is simultaneously have glucose present in your brain, but a backup alternative fuel source you can burn at the same time, which is called ketones. So you get more ATP more consistently in the brain, and a certain percentage of your brain function, from memory I think it's 14 to 16%, can come from fat. If you do this every day for a month, according to a study where they actually looked at what percentage of energy metabolism comes from fat versus sugar when the fat's available. Since you would get sick if you had 18 spoons of coconut oil, but you can have 1 spoon of brain octane oil, that's why I add it to Bulletproof Coffee. It doesn't change the flavor. It just makes you feel full and focused and full of energy, and it also has an effect on thermogenesis, which is the way your body burns fat.
Well, it's interesting because we did just switch to the MCT8, and I found that the flavor was better, and the energy was higher. So I was able to very quickly notice a difference.
So you did feel it. I mean, coconut oil is kind of a nice flavor, but for me, it isn't that good in coffee. But
I was getting.
It doesn't change the flavor.
It was enough change in the flavor, and it was a little bit greasy that I was feeling like I was smacking my lips a lot because it was like kind of greasy in the lips. But the MCT8 is very mild in terms of like the change in flavor, so it was great. I preferred the change, and then the ghee just makes me feel full. So
that's what the ghee is there for. So you get the energy from the brain octane oil, which is chemically that MCT8, and then you get that fullness from the ghee, and ghee has another thing in it, and same as butter. Butter is frothier and creamier for most people. They'll prefer ghee, so they don't get as much of an oily feel. There's something in it called butyric acid. It's a short chain fat, and butyric acid is shown in multiple studies that I referenced in the book to have very good effects on inflammation in the brain and in the body. So by eating butyric acid, as well as producing it by the bacteria lower down in your gut, you get multiple benefits. So the idea that butter actually is doing something beneficial for you besides just making you feel full, it's well documented in science. So butter is good for you if it's good quality butter from grass-fed cows.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned inflammation because I'm seeing more and more studies that inflammation is almost the cause of every physical problem we have. Like it's almost like the catchphrase to like blame inflammation now for everything. And this is related to the paleo diet that somehow like carbs, I guess, increases the inflammation in the body. So
well, it's kind of like that. Not all carbs increase inflammation, and on a paleo diet, excessive protein or low quality protein can also increase inflammation. So I look at inflammation as a symptom that you did something wrong. And when you have inflammation, it will drive things like joint pain, cognitive dysfunction, cancer or heart disease. Like inflammation is always present, but something caused the inflammation. So it's like an intermediate step. It's not necessarily the cause. It's a symptom, and something made inflammation happen. And it could be that autoimmunity, because you ate something that made your immune system attack itself. It could be that you directly ate, say, a toxin, or you ate something you're allergic to, or you just had too much lifestyle stress. You didn't sleep, and you keep getting drunk, and that causes inflammation too.
Right.
Well, it's funny. So we just got the Bulletproof Sleep kit. We got your the mat, which I guess is like
The torture mat.
Yeah, it's got these pointy things, so it does acupuncture of some sort. But I guess the idea is. Oh, go ahead.
It's called a sleep induction mat. Yeah, there you go.
And so I guess the idea is it causes slight amount of pain that endorphins are released, which makes you happier and sleepy.
Have you ever seen a puppy, like if you hold a squirming puppy, if you just hold it still for a minute, it just melts in your arms and relaxes? The sleep induction mat's like that. You lay on it, it has these little tiny spikes. They don't actually penetrate your skin, but they're sharp. And you lay on it and you go, oh my God, this is sharp. And then your body freaks out. But when you just make yourself lay on it for about a minute, then it's like your fight or flight response turns off. You just melt into it, and then that endorphin release happens. And you sleep more deeply all night long because of the endorphins. Like, it's a neat little hack. I love that thing.
Yeah, it reminds me of the fakirs in India that used to sleep on beds of nails. That was the first image that came to my mind when we laid on them last night.
But maybe they were using a version of this, but just that their endorphin tolerance was so high that they needed to first get on nails first.
Yeah, I would say sleeping on a bed of nails is more advanced, and it sounds so masochistic.
Yeah.
I would have never believed that, okay, you lay on this thing, which clearly is going to hurt, but it doesn't hurt that much. But it's not masochistic because you just have this brief little burst of pain as your nervous system starts complaining. You tell it to be quiet, and then it's meditative and relaxing, and I feel amazing when I lay on that thing.
Well, will you use it during the day? Like if you're feeling stressed during the day, will you use it?
Yeah, I put it on the back of my chair, and sometimes I stand on it. That took me some doing. I had tender feet. My whole life, I couldn't walk barefoot outdoors because it would just hurt. And I would force myself to do it for days on end, and my feet would never toughen up. But I would put this mat on the floor under my feet, barefoot, and I just let my feet rest on these spikes, and I would stand on them. And after a week, I totally changed the way my nervous system worked in my feet, and I could walk outside without like masses of pain, which had been a goal of mine for years.
Wow.
Well, and the other thing we did with the Bulletproof Sleep is we got your the containers of GABA. So maybe describe what GABA is and what it does for the body.
Well, there's an amino acid called GABA, which is common in your food, and it's an inhibitory neurotransmitter. And so you can buy GABA just like at Whole Foods. The problem is that it doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier that well. And we came out with a supplement called GABA Wave, which is a form of GABA that's far longer lasting in the body. And we packaged it inside something called a liposome, which is a fatty acid droplet that's used in the pharmaceutical industry to make sure that things get into the body well. And that supplement called GABA Wave is related to what we just talked about, because what it does is it enters the body and it triggers that relaxation response. So instead of feeling like the physical stress of travel, say you're getting jet lag, you're on an airplane, bad air, bad food, all the stuff that happens, you take this and your response to the stress is just less. So you become more resilient. And it was originally used actually for jet fighter pilots in Russia when this form was invented. And today we have a professional race car driver who takes it before he goes out on the track because he wants the calm focus that happens there. And because it's long-lived in the body as opposed to the GABA you buy at the store, GABA Wave helps you with sleep later that night. So focus all day, sleep all night. So I use it for jet lag every time I travel. It's a huge difference.
So do you take it during the day if you're feeling unfocused, for example?
Oh, yeah. I take it in the morning, anytime before noon. And I actually take it right before bed if it's convenient because I have control of how quickly I go to sleep. But for a lot of people, when they have a lot more focus, even if they're relaxed, they just want to think about stuff instead of going to sleep. So if you have a hard time closing your eyes and just passing out, then you wouldn't take it before bed. But for me, I'll do it before bed. For most people, I just say take it before noon. You'll have a great day, and then you're going to sleep better than normal.
Oh, that's
funny,
different than how we did it.
We've been taking it at night.
Yeah.
to help with
Okay.
the sleep.
Right.
So
It does do that. It lasts for 36 hours in the body, so you want to make sure you take it every other day. Like, it's a very powerful supplement. Probably
Wow.
the second most powerful, third most powerful maybe that I've ever made.
So when you say take it every other day, we got these containers, and then
Little
we've been
capsule.
doing like 4 or 5 milliliters per dosage. So it'll
5 drops.
it'll take a while to run out of a container.
So the GABA wave little mini shots, these ampules, you twist off the top, and they're meant for you to take the whole ampule. You just swallow the thing. It's a strong flavor.
Oh.
And
I see.
Some people do okay on half an ampule, but the idea is that's a month's supply in one pack. They're cool because you fold it open and then you just pull an ampule out. You can put it in your pocket, you put it in your luggage, and it's something you just put in your pocket, you drink it, and you're done.
So in the next part of the book, you I like how you sort of break out what the bulletproof foods are, all the way down to what the kryptonite foods are. So what are some bulletproof foods that people can consider for breakfast, lunch, dinner, as opposed to kryptonite foods, just so people can have an idea?
Sure. Before I do that, why don't I just tell people where they can download that for free? You don't have to buy the book or anything else. I just want this info out there because people are a lot nicer when they have good food.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can go to bulletproofdietbook.com and you can get the infographic there. And if you buy the copy on Amazon right now, you can pre-order it. Then you can just forward your receipt over using the info at orderbulletproofdietbook.com. And then I'll send a bunch of free videos. So you could be looking at the roadmap right now. It's designed to be printed on your fridge, and it tells you what to eat when and which foods are less inflammatory than others and cause better performance.
Great.
So at the top of the list, what you'd find is things like grass-fed beef, green vegetables, and I actually tell you which ones need to be cooked before you eat them. Like, it's a common misconception that, oh, you should eat your kale raw. It turns out that there's a good reason that you might want to cook your kale, your collards, your spinach, and your cabbage rather than just eating it raw, because they inhibit thyroid function and because they can build up oxalic acid in the body.
What about can I have kale mixed with bacon at least, or is that no good?
Sure, you can, but just cook the kale. So I'm not saying kale is bad for you. I'm saying that when you cook your kale, that it's better for you than eating it raw.
But what about bacon? Because that's what I really want to be good for me.
What you want to do is you want to just put the bacon right in your juicer and just have bacon juice. You'll be fine.
Oh my God, I never thought of that.
Bacon is good for you, but you've got to be really, really picky. You should become a bacon snob because the typical industrial pork is not good for you, and you shouldn't eat it.
Because
So
it's
that
not
means
grass-fed?
Well, pigs don't normally eat grass, but you want a pastured pig. And the problem is that pigs suck at eliminating toxins from their body. So do humans, by the way. We share a lot of pathways. So because they feed low-quality food to pigs, the pigs accumulate toxins from the food. And then this is why a lot of pork is associated with certain diseases. If you're getting high-quality bacon and you cook it gently, not till it's burned and smoking, you'll get a food high from it. You'll feel amazing. So quality matters most for bacon compared to any other food except maybe chocolate and coffee, because those are also high-risk foods. But when they're done right, they're very beneficial.
I don't even know where I would get quality bacon, like Whole Foods.
Whole Foods carries it sometimes. You need to say, was the pig pastured? But your best bet is a farmer's market. And you go there, and there'll be someone there who's like a bacon hacker. And they raise the pigs themselves, and they probably named the pig. Like, I want the bacon from Bessie. That's the best bacon.
That's great. So I think then the question is, I should go to a farmer's market and ask people if they name their pigs. And if so, then I know that's my guy.
Yeah, and the names have to be 2 syllables or less, or it's not good enough.
And maybe they should be women. Women pigs. Bessie. So Dave, so what are you going to eat today from beginning to end?
Well, I'm actually doing bulletproof intermittent fasting today. So I woke up and I had bulletproof coffee. I used my upgraded coffee beans. I pulled 2 shots of espresso on my La Marzocco machine. For espresso snobs out there, they'll be all, ooh, that's a good machine. And then I mixed those with brain octane oil and grass-fed butter. And I'm going to skip lunch. So I might have another one of those, which would be maybe 1 or 2 shots at lunchtime, but I'm going to skip lunch. And for dinner, I'm going to have grass-fed steaks, and because I live on what is becoming an organic farm, the cow that I'm eating ate the grass from the front of my property, and the neighbors raised the cow. And then along with that, there'll be most likely a bunch of Brussels sprouts and probably cauliflower and maybe some butternut squash.
You know, it's interesting because for lunch, we just had actually cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, which I...
Wow, I'm so glad you said this because I was thinking we're eating like the starchiest vegetables, but that's good news.
And in order to sort of pan with onions and stuff, I use grass-fed ghee. But the thing is, right after I ate that, I got a craving for a cookie. Which you say if you have to have some a cookie, have it for dessert rather than breakfast. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing it fine. But I wish I didn't get that craving. Maybe it's because
Here's what to do. There's a reason you got that craving. You can certainly turn it down. Sprinkle some brain octane oil on every meal, just a teaspoon or two. I pour it in, like, so the Brussels sprouts, when you're done cooking them, before you serve them, just pour it on there. And here's the cool thing. Brain octane oil is a flavor enhancer. It activates the fat taste buds in your mouth. Like, your taste buds, there's no fat flavor, but your taste buds respond differently to fat. So you'll taste more of your food when you do that. So it's a culinary thing.
Great.
But it helps to turn down cravings. And I think you're overcooking your food.
Really? Okay.
That could be Dave, because I'm Jewish, and for centuries we've been known for steaming all the nutrients out of every vegetable, and
He likes it very
Claudia
soft.
has taken that habit up.
Well, I think you're less likely to steam it out because steaming doesn't do so much damage. It's when you cook vegetables in fat, you're basically frying them, and you can damage the fat, and that damage, and ghee is the right fat to use for that, that damage can cause a food craving. So if you want a cookie after dinner, then see what happens if you steam or water cook the vegetables and you add the ghee at the end instead of at the beginning. Little hacks like that are in the book, and it's amazing the difference in how you feel in your food cravings. And the cool thing is, if it's dinner time and after dinner, your body is really telling you, look, it's time to eat some carbs, especially for women.
Yeah.
There's a case for sleep that says, all right, maybe if you're going to have a piece of fruit today, have it for dessert, have a bowl of berries, and you'll be fine. Because what you have today, what we're talking about here, is a very low-carb diet. If all I have is a half a cup of butternut squash and some green vegetables and Bulletproof Coffee today, I'll have had a vanishingly small number of carbs, certainly under 50 grams. So even if you had a cup of rice at dinner, you won't be in ketosis, you won't be in fat-burning mode, but you're still on a low to moderate carb diet. So it's okay to listen to your body, but make sure that it's not a craving because your liver is trying to detox burned protein from meat that was overcooked. That causes cravings for a lot of people. So you can just tweak your meals. And here's the thing, when you're doing it right, you should eat and go, oh, I'm so satisfied, and then feel that way for at least 4 hours.
Wonderful. I'm going to try that.
So if assuming today wasn't a fasting day for you, what would be after the Bulletproof Coffee, which lasts through noon or whenever, what would be the next set of things you would eat?
I would have lunch around 1 or 2, and I usually have soup for lunch because it's fast. And what that is steamed vegetables, and my fridge is full of vegetables. So I would pick some. I would toss them in a pan with water, boil them, and then I would take about half the vegetables out of the water, toss them in the blender with butter, brain octane, and I'll oftentimes use the upgraded collagen in that as well, which is kind of like the lazy person's bone broth. It's the connective tissue that is completely missing from your diet. I put that in there because it has no flavor and it just disappears. I blend it with spices, and these recipes are in the book. And then I have that. And sometimes I have it with ground meat, like grass-fed beef or grass-fed lamb or fish. And it takes about 12 minutes to make a lunch like that. And a blended soup with a creamy taste and butter like that, it's so satisfying. It's one bowl. There's not a lot of dishes. And it's fast because it's the middle of my workday. And I will be full for another 4 or 5 hours from now because I've got a high percentage of fat and a ton of vegetables and moderate protein from high-quality sources. That's kind of the template for a meal.
Right.
And then kind of going into from eating to sleeping, what time do you usually start your bulletproof sleep habits?
I start my bulletproof sleep habits around 8 p.m. And that's because I have dimmer switches throughout the house. I dim the lights, and after about 8 or 9 p.m., I will wear orange glasses sometimes, or I usually go up and I handle some more writing tasks for Bulletproof. And in my work area, I have software the software is called Flux, and it's free. And what it does is it turns your monitor down so that at night you're not staring at a bright white or blue light, because staring at bright lights or just having bright lights on your house, particularly those compact fluorescent lights, those are the worst for sleep. And what those do is they turn off your melatonin production for about 4 hours after you look at them. So if the last thing you do before bed is stare at your iPhone, especially if it's on full brightness, well, you're not going to make melatonin for most of your sleep cycle, and that will ruin your health over the course of years.
Right. And I understand even if you cover your eyes, right, because the light goes through the skin.
Yeah, people have a hard time believing that, but there is a great study where they looked at the effect on dreaming of just red and blue LEDs on the skin. We have photoreceptors in our skin, even though we're not aware of them. And your body sleeps amazingly in a pitch black room. So we just moved into our house. We're remodeling, and I have ghetto blackout curtains up. I have aluminum foil on the window. We have curtains ordered, and I sat down with our interior decorator. I said, look, if I can see any light at night through the windows, then it's a failure. And she got really nervous. I said, no, I actually want blackout curtains. I don't mean blackout curtains with light coming around the edges. I want it dark. So now we have these really nice shades that are in tracks. So when you pull them down, you can't even tell there's a window there. Like, this is what they're putting in. And it's so important. If you live in a city and you're getting city light through your window, you will never have the good night's sleep that you're capable of having as you would if you just hung a heavy blanket over the window or put in a really good quality blackout curtain.
Wow.
So we do that. I sleep in total darkness.
So I want to ask one more question about the book, but then I want to ask also about the business around the book. And Claudia, you had a question about the...
Well, the thing is, David, you see, I am addicted to sugar. And in the book, you talk about sugar not being necessarily that good. And you have xylitol as the first alternative. And I'm afraid that's going to taste like stevia or something like that, because I hate that stevia stuff. It tastes horrible. So tell me that the xylitol is good news.
Well, you're not alone on stevia. About 20% of people think most stevia tastes bitter. I'm like that. Stevia tastes bitter to me. There's a few varieties I actually use in some new products that are coming out. I use a little bit of stevia, but it's an ultra purified form that doesn't cause that bitter reaction. So I'm hoping that those meet your requirements. But the mainline sweetener that I use, and it's there like an unfair advantage, the little ampoules that give you more energy. There's xylitol in those. Xylitol is a sugar alcohol from birch trees. So birch sap tastes sweet, and we discovered in World War II in Denmark when there was no sugar. It's like, oh, we could eat this, and they found, wait, our cavities just went away. Like, there's something going on here. And now, like in Korea, there's been a giant reduction in cavities because xylitol makes bacteria unable to stick to your teeth. And you can use xylitol in a nasal spray even, which will inhibit the ability of bacteria to cause sinus infections. So it has benefits for you, but when you eat it, it just tastes like sugar, but a little bit cooler. And the Bulletproof chocolate, we just launched a hot chocolate powder, which has no sugar at all, and we use that in there. And it does taste good. It is the best tasting natural sweetener that is not harmful. There's two things to know about xylitol, and this is really important. Actually, let's make it three things. Number one, never give it to a dog. It tastes so much like sugar that a dog's pancreas releases insulin as if they ate real sugar, and that causes them to get really low blood sugar, and it can actually kill dogs.
Wow.
And again, chocolate. So no xylitol around pets. If you're listening to this, be really careful because a lot of sugar-free stuff has xylitol in it, and it's dangerous for dogs. But for people, it tastes very much like sugar. And that's the first thing to do. Second thing is some xylitol, in fact, most of it on the market today, comes from corn, which is genetically modified and made in China. And that stuff will cause disaster pants. It is very rough on the gut, and you don't want to be using that. So you want xylitol from hardwood North American trees.
Mm-hmm.
How do you find that?
Yeah, is it in the Bulletproof website, or how do I find it?
I don't sell xylitol, but if you do a search for hardwood xylitol, there's several brands. Sometimes you can even find it at a place like Whole Foods.
Okay.
But quite often there's stuff that's packaged to non-GMO, et cetera, but it's still corn-based. You will feel the difference if you use real xylitol. And a lot of the criticism of xylitol that people have is that, it really caused gut problems for me. Like, well, you were eating the cheap stuff, not the good quality stuff. Like, quality matters so much.
Right.
So what's
He has the third one, though. He was going to say three
sorry.
things.
The third one is that if you have really serious gastrointestinal problems, something called SIBO, small intestine bacterial overgrowth, there is some evidence that xylitol may not be good for you. But I also know other people who have had SIBO who use xylitol because it's way better for you than sugar. So you might need to even eliminate that sweetener, but I consider it to be the safest sweetener by far and thousands of times better for you than sucralose or NutraSweet or any of those other things. Those things are just outright harmful. Those are kryptonite foods on the Bulletproof diet.
Okay.
So in terms of the business of all of this, how did you get into the business of so first you were biohacking on yourself, then you decided, okay, I'm going to create a business out of this. What was that process like? How's it going? How did you start up? What's revenues like?
It's an interesting story because I am already a successful entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I left in January of this year. I left my job as a VP at a big internet security company. And I started the Bulletproof blog not to make a big business out of it. I started it because it's not really fair that I was lucky as a young man and I made $6 million that I lost 2 years later. But I got to spend $300,000, and I had to spend that much money and 15 years figuring out how to make myself well and then how to make myself upgraded. And I just realized if someone had just come along and said, Dave, here's the stuff you need to know, just try these first, they would have made this a 2-year process that would have cost me $10,000. And it would have changed my life. And I would have had 15 or maybe even 20 years of clear thinking, emotional regularity, and just all the stuff that I've managed to build. I could have built it with a roadmap. So I started writing my very best stuff. My first blog post was about Bulletproof Coffee because it's the best thing that I know of. I, in that post, explained how to get high-quality coffee that was likely to be lower, but not free, lower in mold toxins, but not free of them. So after I found that, wow, people really are noticing a difference, it's clearly not just me. And I kept getting these messages from people who were just transformed. Then I said, all right, I'm going to, instead of using coconut oil, I'm going to talk about MCT. And eventually I standardized on the C8 MCT, the brain octane oil, because it works best. And the coffee beans. It costs a lot of money to create coffee that doesn't have mold toxins in it. And part of that process is lab testing the coffee. And I developed a set of labs so that I could always feel good. Because I found I would buy high quality coffee, like single origin, Central American, wash process, and I would drink a cup of it. And then 2 hours later, I have food cravings and I'm feeling tired and maybe my joints hurt a little bit. Okay, that was coffee that had mold toxin in it. And I throw the coffee away. So I figured out how to make coffee that was consistent and perfect every time. But it's expensive. So maybe I'll put that online. And so I'll have access to it. Maybe 100 people also want this coffee. And we'll just be like, the annoying picky coffee club. But it turns out a lot of people who can't drink coffee can drink my coffee beans because a lot of the problems that people associate with coffee, like you drink it, good for 2 hours, then you crash, it comes from these mold toxins. They're invisible, and so people just write it off, but it's controllable. You have control. So I started making stuff that I wanted. Everything on my website was something I wish that I could buy this. I'm wait, maybe I'll make it, and someone like me will want it. And it just turns out that the stuff I make, you can feel that it works. So I make the things that I want. That's my secret. And I give away my best information for free, which is why you can download the roadmap. It took a couple of months to create this thing. It's a ton of info on a single chart. It says what to eat when, what's best and what's worst in stack ranked order. That info is hundreds of books compressed into one thing, and you don't have to give me money for it. I'll just give it to you because you'll benefit. And you might want to try my coffee, you might not. It's okay.
Yeah,
that's how the business started.
We're looking at the chart right now. It's great,
it's
actually.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a work of art.
So what's your personal goal with it in terms of you said you're involved with the anti-aging group? Like, do you want to live to 300 years old, and have $50 million from the Bulletproof business? Like, what are your personal goals with all of this?
I want to live really, really well. So it's not so much about quantity as it is about quality. And running this anti-aging group, I've learned firsthand what being old is like, because I had arthritis when I was 14, and I used to function more like an old person than a young person. But I've also worked with people, and I see what preventative maintenance can do versus trying to repair things. And I've watched heroic efforts succeed by people in their 80s who just totally turn things around. And I've had endless conversations with them, and I'm so amazed at just the willpower and wisdom that goes into that. But it shouldn't have happened. It's because they didn't know better when they were younger. So my mission with Bulletproof is to take these practices that improve quality of life right now, no matter what your age is, that also have anti-aging benefits, that also have benefits. So if you follow these practices and you decide to have kids, well, your kids are going to have better genetic expression because of epigenetics, and they'll have a lower incidence of things like autism and birth defects. And I want to measurably move the needle on Alzheimer's and autism. And I think by just showing people what makes them kick ass and feel amazing, that if you do that naturally and with the right foods, that quality of life improves for everyone. So my goal with Bulletproof is not to make a lot of money, but it's to help a lot of people. And to that end, I just reinvested a substantial amount, like 6 figures plus, into making my first documentary. And the documentary is about mold in our houses and what this does, because I'm finding these giant things that are affecting hundreds of millions of people that no one knows about. Talking to the world's experts, making the story of it so people can learn about this. And then I just wanted someone who's listening now, there's a leak in my bathroom and everything was soaked for 2 days, but I mopped it up with towels, everything's fine. And I gained 30 pounds and, I'm sick all the time. Well, there's a correlation there and you didn't know it until you heard this. So maybe you should think about it. And if I succeed in helping people do things like that, using the social media awareness that Bulletproof has created, I think I'll have made the world a better place for me and even for my kids. That's what I'm doing. And I'll make enough money. I already made enough money. I was a VP at a big company. Like this isn't about making 50 million or something like that. This is about service, to be honest. Like, I'm sharing what I learned because it changed my life, and I just wish someone had told me. And that's my core motivation.
Well, I do have to say from our side, and this is like no BS and not trying to, promote anything. We've been using the Bulletproof Coffee. We've been doing the Bulletproof Sleep and some of the other suggestions in the book, and they have made radical changes in our lives. So it's been helped, which is why we really tracked you down for the podcast. So we're real excited to have you on here.
Thanks for letting me know, and I'm so grateful for that because it changed my life the same way. And it's not like you took weeks or months, right? You felt this in a day or two.
No, the Bulletproof Coffee, was like lightning hit the house.
Yeah, and we also have the dirty experience going on the first day.
That was Claudia, not me.
But it was fantastic. It was amazing.
Yeah, I'm a prolific writer, but 170 pages in a weekend, that's something I never experienced before. And I was ready to go for more. Claudia had to force me to go to sleep. So
I did my whole major editing run in 5 nights. I drank Bulletproof Coffee. I stayed up all night till 7 a.m. I sleep from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. and I would just write. I was in a flow state for almost a week straight. And I was drinking Bulletproof Coffee and taking all my supplements and doing electrical stuff. But next time you need to write like that, take Unfair Advantage and GABA Wave along with your Bulletproof Coffee. And there's another layer of performance you haven't accessed yet. No joke.
Oh, we're going for it.
It's
happening.
I'm gonna take the GABA right now after this.
Me too. Yeah, I'm waiting for the call to Ellen to get my GABA in. Yeah, and the Unfair Advantage is coming. Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, we haven't ordered the Unfair Advantage yet. What does that do?
I'll send you some, and it's it's an ampule, but it tastes good. The GABA wave isn't a good taste. So you tear the tub up and you drink it, and it increases your mitochondrial function for about 6 hours. Your brain has the highest density mitochondria. These are the little power plants that fuel all the cells in your body, that power them. So when you take it in the short term, you just get more mental energy and more physical energy. It's like a whole body nootropic. But then if you take it regularly, the active ingredient, which we're synthesizing from scratch into a new form, it is shown in multiple studies to help you grow new mitochondria. And that's important. So one thing is make your existing engines run better. It's another thing to make them bigger and stronger. And that's what it's doing over time. I take this stuff every day. I'm on it right now. And if you want to write or you want to give a big public speech, you just want everything in your brain to just work flawlessly, you do that and Bulletproof Coffee. And it's like there are upgrades you can do. There's different systems in the body. Just like, you can go to your computer, you can add RAM or a bigger CPU or a bigger hard disk. You can kind of change different variables in the body, and you can combine those techniques. And like for writing and creativity, there's so much you can do. I just love this stuff.
Wow, you should write something just on bulletproof creativity.
Yeah.
Ooh, I think that's a great blog post.
That's a great idea.
Creativity. Yeah, okay.
I will follow that like a Bible if you do that. Let me ask you just. I'm just gonna name like different foods, and then I know we've taken up a lot of your time, but we were just arguing yesterday about pomegranates when we read it in your book.
Right.
Like Claudia loves pomegranates, and my 12-year-old loves pomegranates. Good or bad? You have it kind of in the middle.
Well, they're a frustrating food to categorize. And the reason for that is that they're very high in sugar and fructose. And fructose is not something you want to have a lot of in your body. Less than 25 grams, and ideally a lot less than 25 grams per day. So the pomegranate is going to blow that out. But pomegranates are very high in polyphenols, and they help an enzyme called PON1. So they have good and they have bad, which is why they're in the middle. So my advice would be have it for dessert after dinner, and you're probably fine. But don't eat one of those, those watermelon-sized ginormous ones. Have a moderate amount of it, and it'll be good for you.
Mm.
And I like the fact that avocado is high because I love avocado. So you finally there's somebody who says something that I like is good for you. Because usually these diets, there's nothing that I like that's good for me.
Guacamole. Here's the trick that's profound. And there's a recipe for bulletproof guacamole that does this. Take a tablespoon of brain octane and blend it in with your avocados when you're making guacamole, and it changes the mouthfeel. It goes even more creamier than the creamiest guacamole you've ever had, and it doesn't change the taste at all. And put in your oregano and lime juice and all that, and you'll love it even more. So I do guacamole and avocados. I probably have an avocado a day on average, maybe even more than one.
Okay, when it's in guacamole form, what do you eat it with?
What's a chip, you mean?
Yeah, usually people eat it with something.
When I'm on the road, I go to Whole Foods and I buy their pre-packed guacamole, the stuff they make there. Here's the trick. Go to the back of the shelf where the stuff they made that day is, because the stuff in the front of the shelf is old. And I'll buy the large tub of it, and I'll pour in some of my brain octane, stir it around, add some salt, and I'll just eat it with a spoon.
Mm.
All right.
If I'm feeling fancy about it, cucumber slices work really well. You can use some carrot or celery. But honestly, there's no reason you shouldn't eat guacamole with a spoon.
All right. And
you're just talking to a Jewish man who cannot envision this without a chip. So it's very hard for us. And I got into that too. So, but yeah, the spoon is fine.
You have plantains in different parts here. On fruit, it's down, but on starch, it's okay.
Right. So the idea is if you want to eat a piece of fruit, you're trying to get fruit that has less sugar in it. And plantains they aren't that low in sugar, and they're relatively high in carbs. So compared to like blueberries or raspberries or a less sweet fruit, that would be not a great choice. But if you're looking to get starch because you exercise or because you want starch before bed, which is the time you eat it, plantain's a safe source of starch. It doesn't have a lot of bad stuff in it, and if you eat it a little bit green, it actually has some resistant starch that feeds your gut bacteria. So it's a question of how are you using it. There's a few foods like that. Well, if you're trying to eat a piece of fruit that's low in sugar, it's not a good choice. But if you wanted to have something like that, it would be a great choice. And that's why the roadmap looks the way it does.
Mm.
Well, Dave, this has been great. I really appreciate it. The book comes out today. It's the Bulletproof Diet. Lose up to a pound a day, reclaim energy, and focus. Upgrade your life. I'm really excited. I hope this book does really well and helps a lot of people. And I'm really excited for your success with this.
Thanks again for having me on. This book has been a huge amount of work, and it's my very best stuff. It's changed my life. It's enabled me to have kids. My wife was not fertile, but these kind of techniques. So it's everything good that I know how to do all in one place.
Wonderful. Thank you, David.
Yeah, thanks again for coming onto our podcast.
You got it.
See you later.
For more from James, check out the James Altucher Show on the Stansberry Radio Network at stansberryradio.com and get yourself on the free insiders list today.
AI might be the most important new computer technology ever. It's storming every industry, and literally billions of dollars are being invested. So buckle up. The problem is that AI needs a lot of speed and processing power, so how do you compete without costs spiraling out of control? It's time to upgrade to the next generation of the cloud, Oracle Cloud Infrastructure, or OCI. OCI is a single platform for your infrastructure, database, application development, and AI needs. OCI has 4 to 8 times the bandwidth of other clouds, offers one consistent price instead of variable regional pricing, and of course, nobody does data better than Oracle. So now you can train your AI models at twice the speed and less than half the cost of other clouds. If you want to do more and spend less, like Uber, 8x8, and Databricks Mosaic, take a free test drive of OCI at oracle.com/advance. That's oracle.com/advance. oracle.com/advance.